Hi, welcome to the second video for this class. Again, my name is Brandy Horn. I'm an instruction and reference librarian at the Greg Graniteville Library. For this class, I'm doing these videos for both English 101 and 201, but the assignment that I have in front of me right now is for the English 201 course. It is my understanding that the 101 is very similar, but has a lower word count requirement and requires fewer sources. So you will need to refer to your own assignment, those of you in English 101, for those specifics. But for the purposes of this video, I have the English 201 assignment up. So for this assignment, you're writing a paper on an argumentative topic relating to something in the field or subject area that you are planning to major in or that you're majoring in. The paper must be 1,750 to 2,000 words long and requires 5 to 8 valid secondary sources for support. The sources that you find for your paper must be of scholarly quality, and none may come from a publicly edited source. And the examples that he gives here are like Wikipedia, Schmoop, whatever, things that you find freely available online. Okay. All of your sources must date back from 1990 or later, so you don't want to go any further back than 1990. And the paper must be written in MLA format. Okay. This is your general assignment description. If you have questions about your assignment or need clarification on any points, you will need to ask your professor. Students come to the librarians pretty often asking for clarification for their assignments. And while we can help you with things like research, we can help you with citations, we cannot clarify your assignments for you because we did not write them, and we don't want to risk sending you off in the wrong direction. So if you are unclear about any of the requirements of your assignment, you need to reach out to your professor to ask for that clarification. But it's always good to think about your assignment before you get started and make sure you understand what's required so that you don't spend a lot of time working on something and realizing that you were just not doing the right thing. Now, one of the requirements for this assignment is that your sources must be scholarly and not popular. When we talk about scholarly information, or another way to say that is peer-reviewed, is we're talking about literally the best quality information currently available. You have a person who's an expert in a field of study. They decide to conduct some research in a particular area. They do that research. They gather all that data. They go through it. They analyze it. They pull it together in an article, and they send it off to a journal. And that journal then sends that article out to other experts, several other experts in that same field of study, who then read through the article and decide whether or not it meets standards of research and scholarship and writing in their field. They look at things like methodology and the conclusions, and they think about it in terms of the existing literature. And if they think that it is good enough, they will say yes. And if they don't think that it is, they will say no. But if they say yes, it gets published. If they say no, it doesn't. So when we talk about peer-reviewed articles, we're talking about like research that's been done by experts, written up by those same experts, and then evaluated by several other experts before it ever gets published. So when we say the best quality information currently available, we mean that quite literally. I always have that caveat there, though, that qualification, the word currently, because what we know now may not be what we knew 50 years ago, right? Because our knowledge and our understanding is constantly growing and evolving over time. And so it is important to pay attention to, or to look for, the most current information, especially in particular fields like nursing. When you get in further into your college experience and you start taking actual nursing courses and you're doing research papers in those classes, they're going to limit you to articles from the last 5 years or 10 years, because it's important in that field to have information that is as current as possible. And so not only are you limited to scholarly sources for this paper, you're also limited to articles that are no older than 1990. Now, if you come across something that is kind of close to that date, maybe it's 1988 or something, but you feel like it's exactly what you need and there's not a newer, there's not anything newer that would be more appropriate, by all means, reach out to your professor and ask him what his opinion is. But we are going to focus on how to find peer-reviewed sources and how to find information, no older than 1990. With all of that in mind, let's take a look at the worksheet that I have created for you for this class. You're writing a researched argument paper, and what this worksheet does is it walks you through the steps of the basic research process. Those of you taking 201, chances are you've had critical inquiry and you've had library instruction for 101 and maybe 102 and maybe your communication classes. Those of you who are in 101, this might all be completely new to you. But the purpose of this worksheet is to walk you through the steps of the research process, but specific to this assignment. And I use the example that your professor provides in the assignment sheet throughout, just to give you an idea of how things are supposed to go. So I'm going to be very explicit about this for those who have not seen this kind of thing before. The first step of the research process is to identify your topic, right? You're supposed to pick something from your field of study, what you're going to major in. So the sample topic provided by your professor, the role of the nurse in chemotherapy regimens. Okay, so maybe that is my general topic. Your topic is the general thing that you're interested in exploring. Okay, now the second step of the research process, once you've identified your topic, is to explore your topic. If you're dealing with something that you don't know anything about, the exploration phase can take the form of just a Google search and looking and see what's available online. I know your professor said not to use Wikipedia as a source, and you wouldn't, but in this stage of the research process, Wikipedia would be perfectly fine. You could look up chemotherapy nurses or whatever, or just nursing or chemotherapy. You could Google these things and look at the Wikipedia entry, right? This allows you to explore what your topic is, all the various things that it encompasses, but also, and this is extremely important, you begin to absorb the vocabulary that's used to discuss your topic, right? You pick up on those keywords, that language that they use, and you take that language and that becomes search terms for you later on, right? So if you're dealing with a topic that you don't know anything about, right, then you can just read generally and you can take notes in the space that I provide you, okay? But if you are dealing with a topic that you do know something about, and presumably you do because you've picked something that is related to the thing that you're majoring in, presumably something that you're interested in, and you knew enough that you knew that it existed enough to pick it as a topic. So if you're dealing with something that you do know something about, the exploration phase can take the form of brainstorming what it is you know, okay? And when I talk about brainstorming, there are different ways that you can do this. There's a thing called a concept map, where you put your topic in a circle in the middle, and I'm sure most of you have done this. And then you kind of grow out from there. Everything you can think of relating to your topic, you branch out from that circle, and then each one of those can branch out even further, right? And you can grow your concept map infinitely. And that allows you, once you're done, to kind of take a step back and look at what you've got drawn out. And it gives you the chance to kind of explore the relationships between different ideas, right? Another approach to brainstorming is a free write. And that's basically just writing down anything you can think of relating to your topic. What do you know about your topic, or what you think you know, what you associate with it, or even what do you not know, right? Are there questions that you have? Are there things that you're curious about? You're writing a research argument. What is your argument, right? What do you have to say? And then on the flip side, what might some counter arguments be, right? So this space is the opportunity for you to just kind of like dump on the page and kind of establish what it is you know and all those things. And then you will probably begin to figure out what aspects of it are more interesting to you than others, okay? So the first step of the research process is you identify your topic. The second step of the research process is you explore your topic. In the space I've provided here, you can either do general reading and take notes, you can do a concept map, you can do a free write, any of these things that allows you to kind of be thinking about your topic and writing those concepts down in this worksheet. And I should go ahead and say, I've given you this worksheet, you have it as a reference point. You don't actually have to print it off. I'm not requiring you to turn it in. You could totally use your own paper and follow along. You don't have to print anything off. So we've gone through the first two steps of the research process, and we move to the third. What is your argument, right? And so using, again, your professor's example, perhaps nurses play the most important medical role in chemotherapy for patients, right? Maybe that is the argument you want to make in your paper, right? And so you articulate that. What is it that you want to say? And that way you kind of have an idea of the kind of information you need to find to begin to support your argument. So number 4. So the first 3 steps, we've identified our topic, we've explored our topic, we've articulated our argument, right? Or it could be that you have a research question that you want to answer. You could do that as well. You could say, how does this impact this, or how are these things related, or what's going on here? But in this case, definitively, here's the argument: nurses play the most important medical role in chemotherapy for patients. Once you've gone through the first 3 steps, then you can look at what you've written down and begin to identify some potential keywords that you might use as search terms to find information. We've articulated our argument, so we know basically what kind of information we need to find to support it through the argument and through our free write or our concept map, right? So we'll circle those things, right, in our topic, and we'll circle those things in our free write and in our articulated argument, and we'll write them down under number 4, okay? Now, moving on from there, kind of an expansion of that, and I apologize again for my dogs, it is helpful to think in terms of synonyms and related terms. Once you've identified these concepts that you're interested in, it's useful to think of other ways that you might express those ideas, right? And I have all these kinds of examples written out in the instructions on the worksheet. But when we talk about, in our articulated argument, nurses play the most important medical role in chemotherapy for patients. We know that chemotherapy has to do with cancer, right? And another way to express this concept of a nurse who deals with chemotherapy, you might refer to them as an oncology nurse, right? So you might use nurse as a search term, but then you might also use oncology nurse and see what happens, right? When we talk about therapy, or when we talk about regimen, we're talking about a plan, a therapy plan. So therapy might be another word for regimen, okay? So oncology nurse might be a kind of a synonym for nurse. I know it's more specific, but it's the same kind of idea that gets you in the direction that you want to go. You might use the word therapy, or you might use the word treatment, right, as synonyms for regimen, right? Also related to this, when you're talking about the role of the nurse in the role of the oncology nurse, part of that role are going to be things like patient education. So when we talk about related terms, we're thinking of other things that, again, are related to our topic that will allow us to target specific aspects of our argument and specific types of information to support that, right? You can think of it, and you're not writing a 3-paragraph essay, but you can think in terms of the 3-paragraph essay where you make your thesis, you state your thesis, and then you have supporting point 1, supporting point 2, supporting point 3, right? And each of those supporting points have to have their own sources, right? And so you're going to have search terms that will allow you to find information for all 3 of those different sources, right? So you have synonyms, which are other ways to express the concepts that you're working with, but then you also have related terms, kind of those subpoints that you're making, the language that you would use to articulate those ideas, to combine with your main topic so that you can find specific information to support all the points that you're making in your argument. Once you've done all this, right, you've identified your topic, you've explored your topic, you've articulated your argument or your question, and you've identified some potential search terms and then expanded that with synonyms and related terms, we scroll down. And what I give you here is a blank table. And the purpose of this blank table is to give you the opportunity to figure out how you might combine search terms to find information, right? So when we look at this table, each line is one search, and each box is a specific concept. You want to make sure you limit one concept per box. You don't want to load a bunch of stuff into a box, right? And so our first search, I generally tell people to start off kind of broad. So we do nurse in the first search box, and maybe chemotherapy in the second search box, okay? And some of the databases I'm going to show you later, you'll find, like, if you have experience with Academic Search Premier at this point, when you go into that database, it presents you with multiple search boxes, right? And that is to give you the opportunity to combine different search terms to target specific information, so that you're telling the database, you put nurse in the first search box, you put chemotherapy in the second search box, you're telling the database that you want articles that contain both of these concepts, right? If you just do nurse, you might get 5,000 results. If you just do chemotherapy, you might get 2,000 results. But if you combine them together, you might get, 1,200 results, right? Because you want articles that contain both of those concepts, right? We are looking at, in our argument, nurses play the most important medical role in chemotherapy for patients, right? So role is another word I might be interested in. Oops, I can't spell. So nurse role in the first search box. So not just nurse, but nurse role, and see what happens. See if it's any different, right? If I wanted to get more specific, I might do nurse role, chemotherapy, and then in the third search box, I might do treatment, right? I can't spell. Nurse role, chemotherapy, and then patient satisfaction, right? So what I'm doing is I'm combining different search terms: oncology nurse, patient satisfaction. And I can continue on, right? All the different words that I identify from my topic statement, from my free write or my exploration and my articulated argument, and my synonyms and related terms, I could look at what I've got and combine different search terms in order to target specific bits of information. Because you have to find 5 to 8 sources, you're not going to do one search and find all of the information that you need, right? You're going to have to do multiple searches, right? And what this allows you to do is think about, okay, what information do I need? What words would I use to find that information, and what combinations of search terms would I have to use to find that information? And allows you to chart it all out in a logical way, so that when you get to the database, you can just go through and work line by line, and you can see what works and you can see what doesn't. If specific words don't bring back anything, or they don't bring back what you need, then you might cross it out, right? Or you might find, as you're going through the database and looking through the results, that there is another term out there that means what you're dealing with, like that is another way of expressing a concept that you're working with, but it's expressing it in the appropriate way for the academic context, right? Let's say you were doing research on seizure disorders and you typed in seizure disorders, you might get several results with that term. But if you see the word epilepsy, in your results list, then you might want to pull out the word epilepsy and try that instead, or try that as well. And you'll find that epilepsy is the better word when you're researching that phenomenon, right? So seizure disorder is fine, but epilepsy is still better. So you may find that there are other words out there that are better than the words that you're using, and you can incorporate those into your search. Okay, so again, think of databases as those multiple search boxes that allow you to combine search terms, and each combination of search terms allows you to target information that will support some aspect of your argument, right? And that is what we use this table for. Again, you don't have to print off this worksheet. You can do this on a blank sheet of paper and just combine search terms, and then when you go into the databases, you have something to work with, right? And you're not just like blindly typing in words, right? It also allows you to kind of keep track of what you have already searched and what you still need to search, so that you don't get lost or confused or overwhelmed, thinking, you know, have I done this already? I don't remember what I've done, or forgetting what words or what combinations you've already used. This allows you to kind of keep track of that, again, so that you don't get confused or overwhelmed. So once we go through all these steps, this is all to prepare us for searching the library's resources. Okay, so in the worksheet, and this is, I'm just gonna like show you what I have here. This is just a general guide to you, so that you know you've got this video, but then you also have this with all the text. You don't have to pull up the video if you don't need to. But you're going to, whatever your subject area is, you're going to choose the appropriate subject guide, and you're going to search the databases there. Every database or every subject guide has the Academic Search Premier database, which is a good general database that covers all subject areas. Those of you in 201, you've probably seen it before. Those of you in 101, you may have seen it. It is one of the databases available through SC Discus, but the version that we have is, the subscription level that we have is higher than what is available through SC Discus. But again, Academic Search Premier covers all subject areas. It's a good place to start, no matter what your topic is. The other benefit to using Academic Search Premier and being familiar with it is that a lot of the primary databases in other subject areas come from the same vendor, which is EBSCOhost. And so because of that, they look exactly the same and they work exactly the same. So if my topic has to do with nursing, CINAHL is our primary nursing database. We have several, but CINAHL is the primary one. And it looks exactly like Academic Search Premier. If your topic falls under business, Business Source Premier is the primary database that we have for business. If your topic has to do with communication, Communication Source, again, looks exactly the same, and that's our primary database for that subject area. So depending on what your subject area is, there's a good chance that the primary database there looks like Academic Search Premier, okay? Again, you can start in Academic Search Premier, but if you've got one of those databases that looks like that, it'll function the same, it'll look the same, and in fact, I'll show you, you can search Academic Search Premier and that database at the same time. Right? Now, all that said, there are other databases, primary databases, that don't look anything like it. Academic OneFile is a similar database to Academic Search Premier in the fact that it's a good general database and covers all subject areas, but it has a different interface. JSTOR has a very different interface and wants to start you off with a single search box. So you would click Advanced Search. And it's kind of the grumpy old man of databases. Science Direct, if you're dealing with more science related stuff, Science Direct is an excellent database. So there are a lot of different databases. All the EBSCO ones look the same, but all the rest of them look so vastly different that it's just a matter of exploring and seeing what you come up with. Now, I give you some general a general overview of some of the limiters or options for refining your results when you're in an EBSCO database. So I list those there. And then I have this information here. You also have information on the library's homepage. When you click on that red box for accessing databases off campus, I provide the link to that page that you would get to by clicking the red box. And then finally down here, if you don't, if you just refer to the worksheets, which I think I have enough instructions on the worksheets to get you what you need. This last page kind of gives you some screenshots of various things that are going on the home page and some information about what those are. Okay, so that is the worksheet that I have prepared for you. Again, you do not have to print this off. You can just follow along on your own paper. But I give you detailed instructions all the way through using the nursing example, right? And I show you how to complete it, right? So you will have a copy of the worksheet that has these examples filled out, but you will also have a copy of the worksheet that's blank that you can use on your own. But yes, that is the worksheet. This is to walk you through the research process. Please follow all of these steps and engage in the process appropriately. And trust me, it will help you so much when you go to look for sources in the databases. Again, if you have trouble with the worksheet or if you have any questions at this point, you can always reach out to me. Again, I'm Brandy Horn, and I work over in the Greg Grant Library.